All right, what is going on, everybody? JT back with you in the studio this afternoon here, Studio 10-4 Live, and it is the weekly update for February 25th, 2026, our last week of February here in the studio and everywhere else. So, got a good show for you, and it's kind of interesting how this afternoon's show came together. I had some stuff lined up earlier and we couldn't pull all the strings to get it to work out quite the way we wanted it to. And something else came up, and it happened to be very connected to who we have in the studio with us today, and that's Troy Miller, who's a longtime contributor of 10-4 magazine, in the industry, owner operator, driver, been in and around the industry doing a lot of different things with us here at 10-4 magazine, and of course out there making a living, running equipment and doing what he's doing. But I'm going to let him tell his story. But what got me going on this whole thing, and the reason we ended up in this direction with Troy, is saw a post today, and it's for a fella that we had on the cover back in, I think it was August of 2004. And there's the truck right there. And that is the 54 Kenworth. And it is up for sale. And I'm just going to pull a couple of shots here and show you what we're looking at. Now, I talked to Dino today, and it is in fact for sale. He has had some offers. I have no doubt this truck is going to sell. But there it is. And I think these are recent, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm seeing some things on the paint here and there because he's mentioned to me that it needs paint on the cab. Now I don't know how involved that's going to be, but depends on what you end up doing with it. And if you decide to keep it as it's been all its life, at least since Dino and his guys built it, and it was on the cover of 10-4 magazine. But the interesting thing about this is after Dan and I started talking about it and kind of putting all the pieces together and realizing, what a specific time during the cover period, the period of time where this truck was on the cover and all the other stuff that was going on around that time. It was a breakthrough era for 10-4 magazine. And hey, Stephanie, good to see you. Excuse me, Jeremy, Chris, Darch, what's going on, buddy? It was a breakthrough period of time for 10-4 magazine and what it was doing as it was coming up through itself in the ranks that it was in around the early 2000s. I mean, 1993, right? When it was conceived. So now here you are, some 7, 8, 9, 10 years later in that era, getting down that way, and things are starting to happen. There was a lot of developmental, formidable trucks that came through at that time, and I mean, it was the beginning of it all, man. It really was. Now, I'm not saying it's the beginning of custom built trucks, but it sure was the beginning for a lot of us in this industry to really recognize, and those outside the industry to really recognize what was going on within itself, within the industry, and certain people doing certain things a certain way. Truck shows that were going on, custom stuff that was being built, just totally out of the box, abstract, who knows what kind of just undone, never before seen builds were being built and put together. And at this time, it was there wasn't stores you could go and buy stuff off the shelf like there is now. and I mean, even now, there's guys are still very much making one-off and custom, parts and accessories and things that they're doing on their own. But yeah, I mean, and I talked about this. We had a conversation last week on the morning drive. I was at a point in my own shop, in my own world, that I was looking at buying a shear and a brake and all these other things that I could get my hands on, because you couldn't go buy stuff like I wanted on my trucks. You had to make them. So very formidable era, very formidable time. And Dan, I'm gonna acknowledge you on that, all of it, man. And Dan, brought it up. Him and Eric were top of the game, man. They were out there covering all you guys and bringing all this stuff along, and running into people like Troy Miller out there, who at that time was 12 years old. So come a long way since then. And I'm going to bring him out in just a second. Trick My Truck. Finally, I've noticed that Brian and the Chrome Shop Mafia guys are putting more out of those days, where they really didn't go there. They really kind of just, for whatever reason, sort of had to leave it alone. And maybe there was, what do you call it, copyright and all that other kind of crap that was involved on that show, and who could and couldn't, I don't know. But anyway, it was never like right out in front of us all the time. And now it's kind of showing itself again. So maybe that's all okay now, and they can, but I think it was a recognizable and absolutely worthy time of recognition that those guys are able to share it again, bring it out, and relive it. And I think it's awesome that they're doing it. So way to go, guys. Way to go, Brian. Chrome Shop Mafia. Way to go, guys. All right. I'm going to bring our guest out, Troy Miller. Hey, Troy, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Yourself?
I'm doing good, man. I love what I do, so I'm having a good time, and get to talk to you here. You were, 22 years ago, right? We figured 12 years old, and it was Colorado, it was Western Distributors, it was Dino and this truck, and the list goes on. But what's a 12-year-old kid doing out hanging around with the likes of Eric Sieben and Dan Lentz? What were you doing out there, man?
So about a year previous to that, I had first found out about 10-4 magazine. This was when not every home had internet yet, and we had just recently gotten internet in our home, and I found the website and everything like that, and I started emailing 10-4 magazine just out of the blue with ideas for articles and whatnot. And Dan had mentioned when we first met at the Las Vegas Truck Show later that year that he didn't realize he had been talking with an 11-year-old kid at the time until they met me and everything like that. And that was kind of the genesis of me working with 10-4 magazine and everything like that. And Western Distributing even also had an early involvement in that as well, because we started with what was called the Kids page many years ago. That's the original contribution articles that I did for the magazine. And the very first published article I did for 10-4 magazine was about Grant and Sterling Walker, and that is Rick Walker's two sons. And Rick at the time was driving Misbehavin', which is the 53 Peterbilt.
Yep.
Preceded Inferno Joe, the 54 Kenworth. And so there was an early connection to Western there as well. And then shortly thereafter, Dino was finishing up the 54 Kenworth and getting ready to do the shoot for it with the magazine and everything like that. And Dan and Eric were both going to be in Colorado. And then, thankfully, it was in the middle of the summer that this shoot was going on. And that meant I was on summer break and everything like that. And so we had the time to make the shoot and everything like that. And so I was able to join along as a 12-year-old kid riding around in this custom 54 Kenworth with 8-inch straight pipes and a cat engine under the hood and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the coolest thing possible for a kid that age and everything. Climbing up, climbing the mountain passes and everything like that. It was not an experience you were going to forget as a 12-year-old kid, and probably much thereafter. And that I think that photo shoot kind of more solidified a lot of things with 10-4 magazine and Dan and Eric and myself. It was, aside from the Vegas show, it was the first time we were able to actually kind of work together. And I say work together loosely because mostly Dan and Eric were working and I was just the punk kid running around having some fun and everything like that. And it went from there, did several more of the kids page articles thereafter, and eventually that led to some early photo shoots and features on actual custom trucks. WTI, which was a fuel hauling operation at the time, was an early one that I did. The late Brian O'Leary and his Montfort paint scheme themed Peterbilt that he built was another early one that I did. And it grew from there.
I'm just kind of flipping through some photos here as we've been listening to you talk here, and of course, I don't know who that guy is. He kind of looks like somebody I used to know named Dan Lins. Yeah, great hair, right? I mean, for you, Dan, or for Troy. I mean, this shot of Troy, man. There you go, buddy.
Oh yes, absolutely. When in my long-haired hippie phase, as opposed.
Hey, once a hippie, always a hippie. Yeah, I love it though. I love it though that you got Shan and Gene in this shot here too. I didn't even know it's just the back of Gene there, but great shots, and of course at the time, well, and there's Eric right there, man. Now there's one to look at for a while. Yeah, Phil, no kidding, huh? Good old days. And Dale Bocaleone, good to have you, Dale. Phil, Donnie, everybody that's joined in. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us today. Talking to Troy Miller here, who's, of course, a longtime contributor of 10-4 magazine. And all right, somebody explain that. Nothing to do with the trucks, but the interesting table.
If I recall correctly, that was after one of the Louisville shows. Actually, there was a sports bar and grill that Eric really liked in the Louisville area, and I remember they had that L-shaped table and everything like that. Yeah. I think that was after one of the Louisville shows.
I'm sure it probably was. What a classic moment, man! That. And there's a great shot at the back of that truck, man. And it just, those stacks or something, I mean, look, the things the way they are now, there's guys building badass rigs out there. There are. But to look back into the history and the vault, the 10-4 vault, there's a lot going on back in time. And it really was a special time. Again, like I said, very developmental in what we now are all so wrapped up in as the show truck world and what guys build. I mean, a lot of these guys back in these days, man, they were just building trucks to build trucks because they were their everyday rigs. Some of them, they were out there running, hauling loads, making their money. Not saying that this truck was one of those trucks, but certainly could have been. And I know he's had it out there pulling stuff around and doing things with it, parades and whatnot. But it was one of those ones that's just a standout in time. I think it will forever be there as an icon to what was back in the early days, man. It just outshines a lot of what's going on now. It's such a cool truck. I can't wait to see who ends up buying this thing, man. It's got a pretty good price tag on it, but hey, doesn't everything, you can't get anything for free. It ain't cheap to be cool, and it ain't cool to be cheap. So get yourself a nice setup. I want to I want to move our photos over a little bit, and I want to bring in some of the other stuff that you sent me today, because kind of a big change from the time when you guys first met. Obviously, you're out making a living every day in a truck. All of a sudden, I'm sitting here and my phone starts blowing up with you sending all these pictures, and I want to open up that file. There we go. Where you're at nowadays and what you're doing is a little bit different than what you were doing then.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly you're still contributing. Where are you at and what are you doing, man? You give us the narration on the photos and I'll rotate through them, okay?
So this photo was in Glen Allen, Alaska, December, 3 winters ago. That was about 48 below zero. I was trucking for Carlisle Transportation at the time, the same Carlisle of Ice Road Truckers fame and all of that. I was running heavy haul division for them, and in Glen Allen is one of the pump stations for the Alaska Pipeline. And we needed to pick up a 160 MCAT blade down there to haul it down to Valdez, and so that's why I was there. For like I said, that was my first truly Arctic temperatures experience at 48 below. That one was in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. I ran the Dalton Highway for 3 winters. That was when I was working with STR, Specialized Transportation and Rigging, out of Wasilla, Big Lake, Alaska area. That one was also around 40, 50 below zero. Done the well below zero Arctic temperatures more times than I can remember at this point. I tell people, if you're outfitted correctly, you're not staying warm, you're just not freezing to death. So I've spent much of my career doing a lot of heavy specialized work. That is the tallest load I've done on public roads at 20 feet 6 inches tall. It's a compressor shack that I brought out of Wright, Wyoming to Ioka, Utah, roughly. We were about 190,000 pounds gross, so not wildly heavy, but we were 16 feet wide and 20 feet 6 inches tall. I actually had a 4-mile section of I-80 shut down so that I could go down the wrong side of the highway, because the only way that we could make it onto the next highway portion, Wyoming 789, was to go down the what was the on-ramp for eastbound I-80 was the only way we could access 789 south without having to go to Kingdom Come, doing a turnaround or bypassing bridges. So we had 5 Wyoming highway patrols and about 10 Wyoming DOT trucks shut down the entire interstate for us.
I've got a question. I'm going to back up the truck here for a second. So here you are in 50 degree, negative 50 degree below zero. I mean, it's not like us where we just go out, start the truck and go. I mean, all the things that we have to do before we even take off, pre-trip, walk around, load, anything that has to be done before we actually start moving down the road. And doing what you were doing, here you are hauling a heavy haul. It's a big cat blade, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was going through your mind where did this come into play? Did you go, okay, I want to go freeze my ass off and do the most miserable load that I can possibly lay my hands on?
So Alaska happened in a roundabout way. It was both searching for new challenges and adventures, and it was just some audacity that I had sent my resume to a number of the companies up in Alaska, and Carlisle called me back offering a position. And it was one of those situations where, well, the opportunity is here. Not many people get this opportunity, so you might as well take advantage of it. It was a very exciting thing to do because there were so many unknowns to this situation, not just the logistics of getting up to Alaska, but what is living in Alaska going to be going to be like, and what is it going to be facing these temperatures and everything like that. It was a very exciting challenge for me, because when the opportunity presented itself, I did not have a very firm plan on how I was going to handle the situation. I just jumped into it, and
Well,
to an
yeah.
extent, I was making up things as I was going along. As far as, my living situation, the first winter there, I didn't really have a permanent residence, so to speak. I bunked out in the truck, more or less. And, having done that in the lower 48, when you do a lot of long distance work, you get used to spending weeks at a time in a truck, sort of thing. But genuinely, to an extent, living until you had a more permanent and settled situation was a different experience. So this is one of the widest loads I've done. We called these pipe racks. It's an assembly of all of the various types of piping for new sections, as they're doing the Willow and Santos expansion and whatnot. I was 22 feet wide with this load. Again, not wildly heavy, about 180,000 pounds. We had loaded this in Valdez, Alaska, and it went clear out about 70 miles out on the field, which the field is a shorthand term we use for the actual rig locations outside of Dead Horse, Alaska. So it was about a 950-mile transport from Valdez up the Rich, and then into Fairbanks, and then north of Fairbanks on the Elliott, and then to the Dalton, up and over Adigan Pass and Beaver Slide and Oil Spill Hill and Ice Cut and all of those
Great names.
So, oh yes,
like, oh shit names.
Yes. Well, there is actually there is a oh shit corner on the Dalton as well.
There is.
So, but yeah, I did two of these. One I took over at Fairbanks as another driver was having to get some home time in, and then this one was the one that I loaded in Valdez and took all the way up to Dead Horse.
So I'm gonna pump the brakes and back up again. So at the point where you got the job, and you're into this thing, it's not like it comes with a book that says here, or a video, or there was a YouTube channel maybe you could go to that, here, if you want to do this crazy, haul out here in the middle of the winter in Alaska, here's how you do. I mean, you tell me, how did you get to where you felt like, okay, I kind of feel comfortable doing this? Or did you ever? I mean, listen, man, I mean, I remember doing what I was doing, and there was days and nights out there where, you're puckered in the seat for certain reasons, and you're under a level of stress that it's all part of the deal. And once you get through it, then it's all great and everything's fantastic again. What's it like where you were doing what you were doing up here, though?
So this was the second winter I was in Alaska. So I had been on the Dalton by that point, and the going trucking on the Dalton, unless you're what we call a hot shot, which is a one-timer from the lower 48, never seen the road before, and accepts a load to Dead Horse. If you're going to run for any of the primary companies up there, Black Gold, STR, Carlisle, Alaska West, Linden, all of them, there's an MO that you do a certain number of trips with veteran drivers, because you need to learn the call outs for the hills, and you need to learn where the hard corners are at and everything like that. So that plays into it. But the other thing is, the gentleman who taught me to drive trucks originally, an individual by the name of Bob Ewing, who passed about 10 years ago now, he told me, when it came to winter driving, Troy, you can become more confident about your ability to drive in the snow and in ice, but you should never be comfortable about it, because if you're comfortable, you're no longer respecting the situation. And that has always stuck with me when I'm driving in winter conditions, whether it was Alaska, Canada, the lower 48. Never assume your traction, your weather situation so well that you can get complacent about what you're doing. Always respect it like it's your first time driving in snow and ice and everything like that. The other thing is, we run tire chains on the Dalton that except for, logging and oil field and whatnot. The tire chains you see, like for meeting K2 restrictions on Donner Pass and stuff like that, you're not going to see those tire chains on the Dalton. We run ice chains, which are studded chains, much heavier duty, that are designed to literally bite into snow and ice. So how you get your traction situation going is a little bit more aggressive than what you see on, I-70 climbing to the Eisenhower Tunnel on a bad snowstorm. This was running push truck on the Dalton. It was the same winter that I did those 22 wide pipe racks. So those big blocks you see on the back are literally just massive weights to up the traction situation. You can see on the front bumper that there's those kind of two large rubber looking black pieces, and that's what the push bumper is. In Alaska, when you get into very, very heavy transports and push trucks are involved, many locations in the lower 48 and in Canada require the push truck to be on a drawbar. That's a large steel bar that permanently attaches the push truck to the trailer that it's shoving on. You don't do that in Alaska. You because of the traction situation and because you don't always want to be affixed to the transport itself, we push truck loose, I guess is the best way to describe it. And so you have to learn to actually run into the truck in front of you. And there's not a perfect rule book on how you learn to do that. Everybody kind of has to develop their own habits and style for how you learn and how you time yourself and how you space yourself on it and everything like that.
I was going to say there's got to be a rhythm to it, man, because you got to be sensing what the guy in front's doing, what that load's doing, along with what you're doing to get that thing the best way you can down the road.
Oh, absolutely. There is such a thing as too hard of a hookup. Push truck drivers have run into the push block on the trailer so hard they've blown the hood off of the truck and landed it on top of their sleeper. My personal the habit and style I developed, as many people know, and through much of the winter, because of how far north you are, we see very, very little sunlight. So most of the time I'm pushing in the dark, and it's very, very cold, dusty, dry snow on the Dalton. And so what that means is it gets kicked up very, very easily, which kind of has this warp speed effect. So what I learned to do is we would have these work lights shining down on the back of the trailer that gave you just enough light to see the rails of the trailer. And the easiest way for me to track the trailer in the dark was actually to do what we called floating, which was hanging about 2 to 3 feet off of that push block, just right behind it, shutting my headlights off, basically doing it in a blackout so that I could see the light shining off of the back of the trailer and just tracking it like that. And so you're booking it along the Dalton at certain stretches at 35, 40 miles an hour in in blackout conditions, basically. And it's a great way to learn to trust other drivers. Jokingly, people would ask me, so what happens if the truck up front goes into the ditch? And I say, I'm just going to push them further into the ditch, because that's what's going to happen. You have to learn to trust other people in those situations to be doing their job effectively, because if you don't have that trust in them that they're doing their job, you're not going to trust your situation, and then you're going to miss hooking up on the truck on hard pushes and stuff like that. You have to learn to trust the equipment as well. One of the things you learn is that in making corners, the booster on the trailer that you're pushing against steers you. You keep your hands over the steering wheel, but you don't try and steer that push truck through the corner, and not just on like gliding corners, on the switchbacks on Adigan. You get in, you shove hard, you keep after it, and the truck steers itself through the corner if you're hooked up on that bar or on that push block and everything like that. You're going to have some hard hookups. You're going to have some hard pushes where you're going to miss a shift. The driver ahead of you is going to miss a shift. You're going to burn out.
Man.
And there are not perfect answers to these situations. When something goes wrong, you address the situation as best as you can in the moment. The very first time I was pushing on the Dalton, we were bringing a 670G Hitachi excavator off of 26 Mile, off of Hess Creek, and the driver up front missed a shift. We were having to go over what's called Happy Man, which was part of the old Dalton, much steeper pull. He missed a shift near the top and we burnt out. We weren't on snow and ice, but we were on frozen mud. And as soon as you dig on that, it's slick underneath. So what we had to do is I had to hold the brakes to keep him from rolling back. He had to get out, hang tire chains. I backed up, letting him roll over the tire chains on his. He got himself chained up. That let him hold the weight on the hill. Then I got out with 330,000 pounds sitting in front of me and chained myself up to then get back on the push block and start shoving everything up the hill. And these are just this, you have to accept that if you're going to truck on the Dalton, and I'm not trying to sound overly dramatic saying this, but if you're going to truck the Dalton, it can kill you. Every winter I was up there, somebody died. And it's just part of trucking that road. You have to accept it's a dangerous road. And you address your situations as best as your knowledge and your skill allows you to. And that's also why we have the etiquette and the habit of stop and check on everyone. Don't assume that they necessarily have all the tools or have all the skill or all the knowledge or all of the experience to handle this particular emergent situation. You stop, because at the end of the day, Phil Crom, the first driver who I did a trip up the road with, once said to me, north of 28 Mile, which is a milepost on the Elliott Highway, it's the last point of cell phone service before you get to Coldfoot. He said, north of 28 Mile, the names on the door don't mean anything. North of 28 Mile, when you're on the Dalton, when you're on the Elliott, you're looking after each other. You stop, you check on each other. Their truck breaks down. It doesn't matter if it inconveniences you. You load them up, you get their gear in your truck, and you get them into Fairbanks. That's just the way that road works.
Yeah. I think all bets are off at some point, and that's that point where drivers now, the camaraderie of the drivers is taken over, and the responsibility of each other to be responsible to one another out there and look after each other kicks in. It's no more, whatever name's on the door. And if you guys, most of you probably are following this, that, there's some competitiveness between brands out there, and these guys are certainly, wanting to get their loads in over the other guy. And I mean, kind of a specialized deal out there. So I'm sure that's a big competitive issue. But let me ask you, man, I mean, out there, obviously you have to, it's survival. If you guys don't take care of each other, it's not like you can pick up the phone and call somebody. You got to rely on whoever's around you to help get you through if you have a problem. And stopping when somebody's off to the side of the road. On the regular routes out here on the interstates anymore, you feel that's kind of all been left to the kick to the curb. It's like, screw you, I don't care. And most of them probably don't even look and grab another gear.
I do think a lot of that old camaraderie of trucking has gone by the wayside. Bob Ewing, he grew, he came up through the industry. His dad started trucking in the 30s. He started trucking in the 1960s when, he predated the CB radio, when many drivers were still using hand signals and things like that to indicate dangers or hazards or things like that to other drivers. And that was the time period when stopping and checking on other trucks, on other motorists periods. That was the period of drivers being the knights of the road and everything like that. And unfortunately, as the industry has grown strictly by the numbers of drivers and everything like that. I think it's become there's become much more of a rat race mentality, if you will, about especially with the advent of so many things being electronically tracked and whatnot. Of where's the truck? Where's the truck? Where's the truck? Where's the shipment?
Yeah.
Where's the driver? Where's this? Where's that?
Yeah.
There's almost no leniency of well, why did you stop? Well, this other truck was broke down. I was making sure this driver was okay. And one of the great aspects about the Dalton is that if you make a stop, and even if it holds you up for a few hours, when you get into cell phone service near Coldfoot or further north, you'll have cell phone service near Chandeleur Shelf, Slope Mountain, and then once you're into Dead Horse. And if you send a message to your dispatch, Alaska West driver had a bad day on Beaver Slide, overturned, we stopped, got them loaded up. The dispatchers up there aren't going to be on your case about the fact that you stopped and delayed a shipment. Their first questions are going to be, is the driver okay? Is there anything we can do? There is still much more of an attitude on the Dalton of look after each other. Even so, it's waning. There aren't as many drivers making the call outs, and things like Garmin InReach and Starlink are kind of changing the communication situation on that road and everything. But I'm very thankful that the drivers I learned from, learn to go trucking on the Dalton from, were very much of the traditional mentality. Phil Crom, bashed it into my head of learn the call outs, make your call outs. That way, even if something goes wrong, if you get in a wreck, if another truck sideswipes you, if you made your call outs, you did the right thing. You handled the road in the correct fashion. Whether or not they did is going to be between them and their company and your company. But if you were doing your job, you don't have to worry near as much about that sort of situation.
When you're up there doing a haul, and this goes to traffic and everything else out there on these roads. I mean, we worry about everything down here on the lower 48, man. We got ourselves and each other, and the animals and critters on the road and everything else. You guys have the same stuff to deal with up there, but what's the separation between you and the next truck? I mean, is it sometimes miles, and is it sometimes inches when you do cross paths? What's that like?
So it truly varies trip to trip. I've done trips through the middle of the night, leaving Dead Horse, headed back south. I brought a turbine compressor wheel assembly back out of Dead Horse to Fairbanks one time, and I had to leave. Basically, I was leaving Dead Horse around 8:00 in the afternoon, and I did not see another truck until I was climbing Adigan Pass, which that was solidly took me about 4.5 hours making Adigan Pass out of Dead Horse that evening and everything like that. So there are trips you'll go hours and hours and hours, and it'll just be you and the snow and the crows and and the moose and the elk out there, sort of thing. And then there are trips it feels like you're crossing I-80 on that road. Generally speaking, it's advised not to run in close packs on that road because the dusty snow can make visibility very difficult and everything like that. Especially
build up on the truck too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And as the other big danger is pulling the hills, you don't want to be in close formation, because if the truck at the front of a pack burns out and starts sliding backwards, if you're too close on them, they're just going to run right into you, and then you're in the same situation. So I try to always maintain at least a half a mile to a mile of separation between other trucks, because that way, if I was in center towards the rear of the pack, if they were having issues on a hill, I had time to get myself slowed down or stopped or whatever. Or if I was at the front of the pack and I was having traction issues, I could call back to them on the radio, say, wiping my feet near Gun Mountain, climbing out against southbound or something like that. So they would at least get an idea of what they were driving into. Or if I did burn out, I could get on the radio and say, hey, burnt out, hold everything up, no room to get around. That's the other thing, is that, burning out. So you'll hear some phrases used on the road. Wiping your feet is when you're starting to lose traction, but you're still making forward progress. Burning out is when you lose traction and you stall out and you're stuck on your hill. And you need to be on the radio when that happens, because when a truck burns out, it is the driver's discretion as to, you'll often be asked, is there room to proceed? And that's the other drivers asking, is there enough room to safely get around you or not?
Yeah.
And if the driver who is burnt out says there's no room, you do not proceed. And this is the problem sometimes with the one-timers coming up out of the lower 48, is if they don't have the etiquette with the radio, they may come bombing off of a hill, not realizing halfway down there's a truck burnt out with no room to get around them. And you need to develop these habits about the radio and everything like that, and always be driving with the mentality of, it's not just you on that road. I was making a trip south out of Dead Horse one time, and I was climbing the knob going southbound, and I could see that there was a truck about halfway up the hill. Now, it was blowing snow. I could see they had all of their lights on, but I couldn't tell quite if they were moving. So I get on the radio and I'm asking, are you burnt out? Is there room to proceed? All these things. I'm getting no answer out of them. And they were right in the middle of the switchback. And as I was starting through the switchback, I could see the driver near his drive tires. And I was like, he's burnt out. I couldn't tell whether or not there was enough room to get around him or not. And so I had to make a decision. Do I try and get around him in the middle of a corner, risk having my trailer slide into him, or do I intentionally back out of the throttle and burn myself out right behind him? And I burnt myself out, had to chain up in the middle of the hill, because it was the safer option, not just for me, but for him as well. You can't be making these decisions that put other drivers at risk as well. And I think that is the core of being a custodian of a driver on the Dalton versus so many drivers in other parts of the lower 48 is often, yes, drivers down here get in this mentality of, it's just me. It's just me. I need to get to my truck stop, to my delivery, to my whatever.
Yeah, you're being kind. It's not just me. It's all about me, is what they're saying.
Exactly. And we need to balance between being efficient, getting our work done and everything like that, and just blatantly putting other drivers, other motorists, and putting ourselves at risk. I live in Colorado, but I go trucking through Wyoming a lot. I see the wind in Wyoming on a frequent basis. And the number of times I have watched the dry vans and the reefers with light loads getting whipped around in the wind and everything. No, but you'll hear me talk about Bob Ewing a lot, because he was so fundamental to me building my career. And I will never forget him saying to me early on, Troy, there is not a load on this planet that is worth your safety, that is worth your life. So no matter what, if you get to a point with the weather, with the traction, with the traffic where it's no longer safe, stop the transport, reassess. And it's that simple.
Well, and unfortunately, and look, I'm guilty of it myself. We sometimes take it on as a challenge, and we shouldn't be, to get through and get to the other end, wherever it is we're going. I wanted to mention something that you said, and Tony brought it up too, man. And when you said it, I laughed. And then Tony said 8 o'clock in the afternoon, things Alaskan people say. You know, how true is that? Because I thought to myself, only in Alaska is 8 o'clock in the afternoon, right? But so true. I mean, it's still light out. It's not going to get dark. It's just the afternoon, right? The part of the day. So
So yeah, so through the summer months, you have what's called the midnight sun effect, which is uh, by the time you're getting into like May, June, July, the sun pretty much never sets. I mean, you'll get kind of this what you might call a dusk level of darkness around what some may call the witching hours, midnight, 1 in the morning, sort of thing. And then through the middle of the winter, there, especially in the latitudes going further north, the sun almost never rises. I was the first winter I was there. I was actually um, in Dead Horse on the winter solstice. So what would be the shortest day of sunlight in the lower 48?
right,
I was
right,
in Dead Horse, Alaska, and at noon it was basically like a dawn level of light out, and that was the sun never came above the horizon or anything like that. That was it. And so it's kind of two-sided. Vitamin D is a big thing in the winter up there
yeah,
because you need to compensate for the lack of sunlight. And then in the summer, um, blackout curtains are cottage industry down there or up there
right,
because you never get away from the sunlight. And I've
right.
told people, that dealing with the Arctic temperatures, especially having grown up in Colorado, had I seen 50, 60, 70 below zero yet? No, but I had seen, 15, 20 below zero. So to me, adjusting to 50 below zero was not as much of a step as some might think it was. What was truly an adjustment was dealing with the very unusual daylight situation. There's a narrow time frame in spring and in fall where it feels kind of fairly normal in terms of daylight. And then the rest of the year, whether it's summer or winter, you're just totally thrown off the
Yeah.
first the
Right.
first months
Your
that you're up
your
there.
body's got to be in chaos. We're coming up close to the top of the hour, and I wanted to share a couple more photos that I've got in here that you sent over to me. And I'm an old Mack guy. I love the old Mack trucks, uh, but not too many of them do you see out there until you get into the East Coast and off into some really unique vocational applications like this. And obviously, I mean, now, and where are you at now? Where are you driving now? What are you doing these days? What's the latest for you?
So I'm back in Colorado. I run a winch truck these days, moving oil field equipment, drill rigs, and associated equipment with the oil industry and whatnot. Still do some equipment transports and other energy related transports. These are photos of a transformer I hauled out of Parachute, Colorado into Denver to be overhauled and everything like that. The transformer itself. I was 17 feet tall with that transport into the urban areas of Denver, which is a thrilling place to be at those sorts of heights. That's
I
a
bet.
Chapter 6 special in Colorado. Had to have a high pole and do a route survey and everything like that. Much of my career has started focusing on much more complex and technical aspects of heavy transport and things of that nature. I do permit diagrams and load simulations at times as well for heavy transports. I've done, for me, it's not getting all that heavy until we're past 200,000 pounds. I've done solo 289,000 gross when we were push trucking the racks on the Dalton, 430,000 gross with all of the trucks pushing together and everything like that. Winch truck, we're moving neighbors rigs and H&P rigs and surface rigs and all sorts of stuff like that. So as an owner operator as well for about 5.5 years, this was one of the trucks I owned. It was called Counterfeit originally. I renamed it Susie Q. It's 1990 B model Kenworth with a 855 mechanical Cummins, 6 1/4 set of boxes. I ran that truck for 4 years before parking it and basically kind of reorienting my situation towards doing much more complex, heavy, specialized work. What it really came down to for me was getting into much more advanced, complex, heavy haul work. The cost of the equipment was so astronomically high. It was not something I wanted to be on the note for anymore, so to speak. You know, a well outfitted winch truck is well over $400,000 by the time it's getting ready to go and everything like that. You know, these the compressor shack is sitting on what's called a Faymanville Highway Max, which is a hydraulic steerable platform trailer. And, you know, some of these truly specialized heavy haul trailers are $500,000, $1 million, you know, can get well into the 7-figure range sort of thing. And these are numbers where you need to have more than just, I guess I'd say more than just the willingness to do it. You need to be prepared for a lot of the business acumen that really did not interest me at that point. You know, I love the math and the numbers involved with doing the transports themselves, but I'm not all that engaged on doing the business aspect of it, the accounts receivable and the outlays and then
right.
You know,
well, and I was gonna say, when it comes down to it, man, there's this part that we're looking at right now, and that's the inside making it go, and then there's the outside in the office to make it pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those two don't come together, and you get in trouble, especially if you got people out there messing with your rates and trying to get you to come down, and you're the owner operator, and you're like, okay, man, if I haul this one, okay, I can make ends meet, or this, that. You know what? It never pays for itself to haul cheap freight, guys. It just doesn't. It's the same cheap freight no matter what. When you get paid a cheap rate, you're hauling. You're not hauling what you need to be making to pay for yourself, your truck, your equipment, your overhead, everything that goes into it. And with a truck costing a minimum of a couple $100,000 right now just for the truck, then whatever to outfit it, now you're into the $400,000 or $500,000 like you're talking about. Now you've got something huge going down the road that really needs to pay for itself. I mean, at that point, oh boy, you better be getting paid, right?
Absolutely. You know, my position is that I have a lot of respect, you know, having been an owner operator myself. I have respect for anyone and everyone who is an owner operator these days and previously. It takes a lot of grit and a lot of gumption to jump in and to go to those efforts, to have your own business, to have your own truck, to do all of that. When I've been asked about what's it like being an owner operator, I tell people, you no longer have a married life, you no longer have a family life, so to speak. You are married to that truck. If you're not driving, you're working on it. If you're not working on it, you're doing paperwork involved with it. You're billing customers. You're doing tax paperwork. You're doing all of this work that is related to that truck, because that truck is your income.
Yep.
For me, I love the complexity of the types of transports I do. But at this point, I'm much more of the opinion, you pay me well to know how to do the technical labor involved in these transports. You folks all worry about how much this is paying. Or, you know, if my check clears at the bank, you can charge them whatever you want to make it profitable for you. Right. I'm just concerned with, does my paycheck clear at the bank, sort of.
Well, listen, and Troy, I mean, you're making it sound all too easy, and it's not, and we know that. It still carries a lot of weight to be out there doing what you're doing behind the wheel, making it happen every day. And that goes from starting your day, getting in the truck, leaving the yard, doing what you do to get through the day and make it back home safely and not hurt yourself or anybody else. All of that's part of the deal, man. And everybody, and I think everybody here that's in this room today, and as well that'll probably be watching this on the playback, are in that same mindset, man. It's just we need to kind of get that same feeling and mindset out there to everybody else that's just kind of either never been explained it, taught it, or lived it, and bring them along and say, look, man, there's a radio in your truck. Use it. Let people know what's going on where you're at so everybody behind you can heed whatever your experience is. If it's a pile up, if it's fog, if it's the man up ahead, whatever it is. I mean, we all got to work together. There's a lot going on out there, and in your work and your time and experience up in Alaska, man, that's one unique deal up there that a lot of guys are never going to see. And congratulations for making it through and making it happen, man. What an experience.
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing I tell people about trucking in Alaska is, if you've ever had the thought in your head, I'd really like to try trucking up there, bite the bullet, do it, go for it. Because I've heard so many drivers tell me, I always wanted to go up there, I never did. I'm too old for it now. I'm too this, I'm too that. Don't let the fear of what may happen, good or bad, up there stop you from taking the plunge. The worst that happens is you get up there, you go trucking, and you find out it's not for you. But if you at least take the jump of getting up there and going for it, you can always go back saying, you know what, I at least don't have the regret of never trying it, sort of thing. So that's one of the things I try and communicate to people that ask me about the Alaskan trucking situation is, if you want to try it, bite the bullet, go for it, win, lose, or draw. You're gonna at least have the memories and the experience of it.
Kind of like Alaskan king crab fishing. If you think you want to try it,
Yep,
I don't know, man. I never had the drive to do that, but I know guys that did, and guys that did the factory trawlers and all of that kind of stuff up there. That they're glad they did it, and they're happy that they made it happen. I will say this, for the sense of adventure, if you feel like you got any kind of pull or draw or anything to do any of this stuff, I'm with Troy, man. Get out there and do it.
Absolutely.
All right, listen, we are at the top of the hour. Jean was just on here too, by the way, and she says good to hear your voice, and thanks for taking the time for your old friends at 10-4.
Absolutely, anytime. And John, Dan, the late Eric, and everyone at 10-4 Magazine. 10-4 has been a big part of how I've developed in the industry, and it's opened doors for me. So absolutely, always happy to be part of the 10-4 family. You guys deserve a thank you just as much for everything you folks have done for me. I'd also like to acknowledge a couple of other people who were formative early on for me. Gary Disher with High Plains Leasing, heavy haul company that trained me, would not be where I am today without him. Vlad Peterrod, he took me serious when I was just a young kid. The same with Ron Kelsey, two legendary names in the truck show world that took a young kid seriously and kind of stoked that fire for me and everything like that. Brian Martin and the Pickett brothers as well. We did a photo shoot following Vegas one year with the Pickett 359 and the Outlaw truck. They had me along, treated me just with as much respect as drivers and as industry professionals. And I'm still just a teenage kid at the time. I think one of the best things we could do is return to having that level of respect for people within the industry, just generally of, we're all out here getting our work done. We need to help each other along. We need to take each other seriously and just be good people to each other. So,
amen. I can't agree with you enough on everything you just said, and how much it is so important that we do this together. I think we've been preaching that through the whole show. It's kind of been the theme today. We sort of started down this road this morning with our show, and it came out in that one too. God bless us all out there, man. But listen, working together God gave us the gift to do what we do. Let's do it together, make it happen, make it easier on each of us, and better. I mean, as a whole in this industry, if we do this together, good things are going to happen, man. It goes back to the basics of networking. You need to work together to make it happen. Teamwork makes the dream work. I mean, it's cliche, but it's true. So,
Absolutely.
Troy, thank you so much for your time and your kind words and sharing your experience with everybody out there today. Made for a great show and a great time. We'd love to have you back again sometime, and I'm sure we will. If you're willing to come back, we'll have you. Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Troy. Take care, buddy.
You too.
All right, everybody. I can't say enough good things about Troy Miller, and first time that I've gotten to talk to him on this level and experience what it is that he's done and what he's doing and his, coming up in the ranks in the industry, and of course as part of 10-4 magazine, and being a continuous contributor to the magazine and still to this day. So fantastic, great job. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You guys are awesome. Be around, man. We'll bring something to you maybe tomorrow or Friday for sure. Next Wednesday, tune in 9 a.m. for the morning drive, and again at 5 p.m. for the weekly update. Keep the shiny side up, everybody out there. Shows are happening this weekend. Dan and Shan are going to be in Arizona, and that's going to be the NHRDA Picket Show and Shine down there that's going on. Plenty of stuff going to be happening. We're going to get our Matt's Big Rig Build-Off show guys together and do that show presentation that we do every year now, and hopefully get JC and Toby and all the builders on Studio 10-4 Live and share that with you. Also, we still have some other stuff in the works that we're working on for you that we're going to be bringing up probably after the Mid-America show experience is over. All right, y'all, take care. Great time today. Thanks, everybody. See ya.